Generation Y, the group of individuals born between 1980 and 1995. But who are they? What do they believe? And how do they stack up against generations before them? My name is Levi Trumbull, and we will be answering those questions in today's report.
So
today we are at Frederick Community College to talk to people who are from the Generation Y era. Our goal is to ask them questions to find out what it is they think and what it is they believe.
Yeah, look at me now, I came up. I've been thinking back then when I almost gave up on the game because I never got in my way. Never got my mama whip on the driveway.
So in your opinion, would you say that you enjoy being part of Generation Y?
I don't enjoy having millennials blamed for the fall of everything from coal to toothpaste or whatever is the problem these days.
I do, because there's so much technology around and there's so many other people connected from all around the world.
I mean, it has its ups and its downs, but overall I think I do.
What do you think the positives and negatives are about it?
Positives would probably be the advances, like the technological advances, the humanitarian advances, if that makes sense. And negatives is probably the separation of people. Like the technology is sort of distance us, yet it's also advanced us in a way.
Being a part of Generation Y, obviously we have seen a lot of evolvements in the way we communicate. What is the way you communicate?
I communicate a lot through a lot of social media. I have like a Snapchat that I use, and Twitter. Occasionally I'll DM people and talk through there, but it's just a lot of times I use just text messaging because it's just an easy way to get a hold of anyone. And recently I've kind of gone back to just calling people on the phone because I think it's something that we've kind of lost as time's gone by. Just the connection, just talk to people over the phone. It's kind of nice to go back to it.
You know, I want to touch on that a little bit. When you have a business setting or a professional setting, you have to learn how to talk on the phone and be able to interact with people in that way and not just, I'll shoot them a text message. You need to be able to actually pick up the phone, say hello, and have a long, drawn-out professional conversation with somebody in order to get business done and to get a message across. So it's almost very important that we don't lose sight of that.
Either in person, over the phone, or over social media.
I try to stay off my phone as much as I can, so for the most part it's person to person. It's vocal communication rather than techno.
I use verbal communication, obviously. I also use text. I call a few people. And typically my main involvement for communication or social media has been like Reddit, which I would not recommend anymore, but...
Even though at the end of Generation Y, which experts say is the year 1995, there was no social media, do you use social media today?
I do, quite often. I have the obligatory Facebook and I have an Instagram, neither of which I use. I mostly use Discord, which is for gamers.
I don't really have Instagram or anything. I usually use Facebook or Snapchat.
I do, probably too much, to be honest. Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter.
Which is your favorite?
Probably Snapchat.
Well, I would sum it up with they are the carrier or at the forefront, definitely, of a cultural revolution, especially when it comes to the workplace. They're born after 1980, and they are a generation that has really been impacted by a lot of different socioeconomic factors that make their preferences and their expectations when it comes to their future, to their life, and particularly when it comes to their future employer, very, very different than anything that any of us has ever been used to before.
So in your opinion, do you think the evolvements of Generation Y, such as phones, computers, tablets, things of that nature, do you think they have made us more social or less?
I think that depends on how you look at it. They've made us more social by like how we connect to each other over the internet. Like people from all around the world, I'm sure I've said already, are like connected by like talking to each other, but less social as in face to face. Like a lot less people like talk face to face, but a lot more people are talking over the internet.
I feel like it's sort of a double-edged sword. You take it how you can. Anything is good in moderation. It kind of depends on how you use it. There's some people who use this technology and use it by themselves, but if you use this technology to grow and to meet other people that you wouldn't have met otherwise, like I can meet someone, today I can meet someone who lives across the world versus if I didn't use social media, or I can sit in my room and not talk to anyone who lives next door. So it's one of those things where if you use it correctly, you can really bridge some gaps, or you can really isolate yourself. So I'd say it's more better than it is bad, but everything's good in moderation.
I would say more communicative. It depends on how you define social. There's definitely, at least from what I've heard, at least, less like person-to-person communication. However, there's definitely a lot more non-direct communication. For instance, texting, calling, or tweeting.
I feel like a little bit of both. I feel like it really definitely like inhibited how people interact in person. I feel like people don't really develop as much of a social skill as when we didn't have phones. We had to be very personal and, face to face with everything. But I do think that it's connected us in a lot of ways as well. Communication is very instant. You can share things in the moment.
Probably say less social. It's kind of like work in reverse. Like social media, I believe it was brought to bring us all together. Create a platform for us to all share and interact. But at the same time, it's distance each other because while everybody's swiping, you could be in a room where everybody's like shoulder to shoulder, but they're all communicating via phone instead of just talking to each other.
It's the biggest generation ever. I mean, there's billions of them that are coming into the workforce, over the next few years. It's the biggest generation that ever existed. It's going to be around for a very long period of time. And, the reality is that they need to be understood. It's imperative for companies to understand how they operate and how they think. And how would you describe this generation? Definitely tech savvy, obviously. Great multitaskers, very short attention span. They squeeze about 9-10 hours of real time into 6 hours of actual time.
Have you ever conducted an interview via telephone or video?
Not really.
Once or twice, not for not for professional matters, but usually for personal matters and for like assignments and stuff.
Tell us about that incident where you had to conduct an interview with somebody either on the phone or through video.
It's kind of the same, except it's a little, I guess, less nerve-wracking, at least for me, probably because of the way I've grown up. It went fairly well because we both knew what we were doing, and it was easier to keep on topic because we were able to write things down in the chat as well as be able to face-to-face. So.
I have not. I've still only done like 2 or 3 interviews, and every single one has been in person. It's always been, usually we set it up through an email or through a phone call to set up an interview, and I've done it that way. But any like actual like job interview, I've gone and done in person.
A common theme with Generation Y is that they are more tech savvy than previous generations before them. Are you tech savvy?
Pretty much, yeah.
More tech savvy than my mom, but not as much as my dad. Though he works on computers, so.
I'd say a little bit more than everyone else, just because I've had a computer to mess around with my entire life.
Absolutely. We've had the availability, therefore we have had the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like you name it, whether it's computer stuff, phone stuff, I feel like I have a general idea of what I'm doing.
I'd like to think so, but there are definitely some things that go over my head a little bit. If I did a little more research, I'm sure I'd be fine, but there's some things I definitely have to help my parents with.
And that wraps it up. Special thanks to all the people who allowed us to interview them. Tune in to the next time that Professor Flanagan assigns us a group project. For myself, Katie, Marlee, Marlene, and Vanessa, have a good day.